welcome back to another Battlefront update. Looking back at 2018, it's been an interesting year for Star Wars Battlefront 2. It started out not that great at all. I mean, let's be honest, it was pretty bad with the loot box controversy and the awful progression system. Things did start to pick up a little bit when the progression system was reworked, but even after that, most of the year was pretty meh. I think personally Ewok Hunt was what I would recall having the most fun I've ever had in a mode in the game in the early to mid part of 2018. And come on, that's not saying much. But things didn't really start to get exciting until the fall, with the squad system, Grievous, and Obi-Wan Kenobi being released, and as well Geonosis for Galactic Assault. All of that were extremely welcoming additions to Battlefront 2 and really added much needed life to the game. But despite all of that, the one addition that I've been personally most eagerly waiting for had yet to arrive. It was originally set to arrive in the fall of 2018 according to the original roadmap released, but DICE then delayed it. So now, going into 2019, the number one thing that I look forward to, with the exception of Dooku and Anakin, is of course the new large-scale game mode, codenamed Titan Mode. In this video, we'll be looking in depth for everything we know as of right now about this new mode, and whether or not will it be worth the wait. So when Battlefront 2015 was first released, I, like most other players, was largely disappointed at the lack of a true Conquest game mode, which had always been a staple mode of the Battlefront series. We got a semi-Conquest mode in Supremacy in Battlefront 2015, and while that was okay, it was nowhere near as much fun as a Conquest mode would have been. DICE then saw our disappointment in this and vowed to make things right for the next game. Yet when Battlefront 2 was released, everything looked initially good, but with the very noticeable lack of a Conquest mode experience, both for online and offline. It seemed that despite EA and DICE telling us that they were listening to our feedback, they truthfully weren't, and most of that was just for mere marketing purposes, telling us, the customers, that they were listening and they really weren't. Sure, don't get me wrong, Galactic Assault is great and all, but I don't know, it might just be me, but I got bored of it already after a few months of playing it. Not only because of the map selection available for it, but really due to its linear gameplay. Something that wasn't necessarily a problem in Conquest, just due to the nature of the mode alone. And clearly I wasn't the only one feeling this. Because back in May, known Battlefront 2 hacker Uninspired Zebra unveiled his latest project to the Battlefront community and jaws dropped. Zebra had by himself managed to code a fully functional and working Conquest mode in Battlefront 2 with all the works. Command posts, custom user interface, control point spawning, you name it. All that was missing was of course the AI, and besides that, this is basically what should have been in the game since launch. All done by one fan. This video even made its way to the DICE studios, with DICE employees reportedly being really impressed by what they had seen. And that got the wheels turning. As then in the summer at EA Play, design director Dennis Branville came out to unveil that a new large-scale game mode would be arriving to Battlefront 2 that would involve capturing points and taking down capital ships. The news of this excited everyone who would be ready for a fresh new mode, especially one similar to the one from the original games. Finally, a Conquest mode in Battlefront 2, but clearly with a spin to make it unique and stand out from the past games. And with DICE seeing the positive reception that came from Uninspired Zebra's Conquest mode hack, it was clear then and there that delivering this to Battlefront 2 was certainly a must. As when the very first roadmap for Battlefront 2 was released, it had the large-scale game mode front and center, ready to be released in the fall of General Grievous and Obi-Wan Kenobi, with Geonosis expected to be released later in the winter. So that of course logically speaking would see the mode be first playable on the already existing Galactic Assault maps, which I always saw as a plus, as that was already a guarantee that we would see more than one map for that mode. Then in August, after a patch, players started to notice something strange taking place in the out-of-bounds areas in some of the Galactic Assault maps, with assets being removed and the ground being altered and more leveled, seemingly more fit for multiplayer play. It was strange as DICE never mentioned any of this in the patch notes, and speculation at this point was rife in that all of this could be the early signs of DICE slowly preparing the existing Galactic Assault maps for that said new large-scale game mode. As that mode was expected for the fall, it only made sense we would start to see some early signs of it in August. Uninspired Zebra had already shown us that the Conquest mode was more than possible in Battlefront 2. But seeing as the size of the Galactic Assault maps were a little too small for Conquest play, that meant that they needed to be enlarged to really work in Conquest. Regardless, it was clear that DICE was busy working behind the scenes on getting this mode up and ready, and that was a good sign. However, then right at the end of August, we got the bad news through the new roadmap, which had shown us that the new large-scale game mode had been delayed to winter 2018, and was instead replaced with Genosis. Now, there were a lot of people still happy with this news, as it meant that they'd get their hands on Genosis sooner than later. But I personally found this very disappointing, as in my eyes, this meant that there was no longer any guarantee that the new game mode would be available for all the existing maps, and may just come out for Genosis. And of course, I couldn't wait for Genosis either, just like everyone else. But if it meant that I would need to wait a month longer for Genosis, just to be guaranteed that the new game mode comes available for all the maps rather than just one, then for sure, sign me up. I was more than willing to wait for Genosis as long as it meant more maps to play on in the end. Apparently, DICE wanted to have the new game mode be available for all the maps as according to their behind the scenes map editing. But after starting work on it, it may had proven to be too much ambition for the skeleton team working on Battlefront 2 at the time. And as we know the story, the new game mode was not only delayed to winter, but also delayed a second time to February 2019. But after hearing so much about this mode in the works, how exactly will it play? Well, we definitely know that capture points will be playing a part in this mode, as well as capital ships and even fighting inside the interiors of said capital ships. But how exactly? When we first heard about the news at EA Play, we all assumed it would be essentially the Conquest mode we all know and loved added to Battlefront 2. But that's since been looking less and less of that being the case. And that's mainly due to the evidence that's been gathered since the initial EA Play announcement, as game code has been found in the Battlefront 2 files referencing something called a Titan mode. And this is the mode which by all accounts should and very likely will end up being the unnamed large-scale game mode. And in case you didn't know, Titan mode isn't a new concept by any means, as DICE originally had it in Battlefield 2142 released back in 2006. Seeing as Titan mode dealt with capture points in capital ships, aka Titans, and not to mention that DICE is literally calling this mode Titan mode in the game files, it makes perfect sense on why we should look back at this mode to give us an idea on how Battlefront 2's new game mode will play. For starters, if you haven't played it, here's a quick glance back at what Titan mode was in Battlefield 2142. In Titan mode, you have two large flying vessels in the sky for each team. The Titans are protected by a strong defensive shield. The only way to drop the Titan's shield is with the Block 3 anti-Titan system. A number of these missile silos get spread across the battlefield. By controlling these missile silos, you can automatically launch anti-Titan missiles at the approaching enemy Titan. By standing close to a missile silo, you can uplink with it and take control of the silo. Once you have control of the missile silo, the system is completely automated and will launch missiles at regular intervals. As your Titan shield takes damage, your battle HUD will automatically keep you constantly aware of their shield status. The more missile silos you control, the faster you can drop their shields. Once their shield is dropped, the missiles will continue to damage the Titan, eventually destroying it. However, there is a faster way of destroying their Titan, as once their shield has been neutralized, you can board the enemy Titan. The easiest method of boarding is with an air transport vehicle. However, the Assault Personal Carrier is equipped with launch pods which can transport you aboard the Titan. The launch pod position in the APC has an indicator which will let you know when you're in boarding range of the Titan. Once in range, you can launch the pod which will automatically orient you to the closest Titan. You can then maneuver the pod onto the Titan using your standard vehicle controls. Once aboard, your goal is to destroy the heavily shielded reactor core. To access the core, you must destroy 4 control consoles which are located inside the Titan. Destroying the consoles on the lower floor will then gain you access to the ones in the upper floor. The consoles can be destroyed with either your primary weapon or explosives. Once done, you can access the reactor core. When the core is destroyed, you then have a few seconds to abandon the Titan before it explodes. And at that point, your team wins the game. Again, this mode was incredibly successful in Battlefield 2142, so much that DICE even added a variation of it later in Battlefield 4. And the way I see it, it's important to really understand the basics of how the mode works, before we can start speculating on how the Star Wars version of Titan mode will look like. And before I forget, Titan mode was a 64-player mode, so if DICE is going to put this in Battlefront 2, they're gonna have to increase the player count to really give this mode any justice. Now, from what we know, Battlefront 2's Titan mode will be released with Geonosis as the only playable map, at least initially, with more maps being presumably added later in 2019. If you've seen my Geonosis exploration videos, you've got a pretty good idea of just how enormous Geonosis is, and how much space is locked away in the restrictive Galactic Assault version of it. As unlike all the other Galactic Assault maps, it's clear that Geonosis was made with the intent of Titan mode to be played here. As in Titan mode, the first phase is to collect the capture points, which in Battlefield 2142 were the missile silos that would attack the enemy's Titan in the sky with the intent of taking out its shields. Now for Battlefront 2's Titan mode, it's hard to say if that'll be exactly the same case here, as the concept art presented by Dennis Brandval on Twitter shows us a command post design that DICE have been working on, and that clearly doesn't look like a missile silo. But with that said, who's to say this will even be used, considering it is just concept art? Regardless, DICE will be needing to find some way to damage the enemy capital ship shields by having players capture the command posts and explain it in a way that it makes sense. Maybe the more command posts that the clones capture will see the Republic artillery cannons fire at the CIS ship in order to damage its shields. Who knows. As for the capital ships in the map, it's definitely going to be a Republic Acclamator and a CIS Providence class dreadnought flying in the skies of Geonosis. Once one team has shut down the shields of the opposition's capital ship, I can see DICE most likely having a cutscene transitioning the winning team being transported aboard the enemy's capital ship. Kind of like how DICE already did that in Battlefront 2015's Battle Station mode, where after taking out a Star Destroyer, the rebels were transported into the Death Star's hangar via a cutscene. Now, of course in Battlefield 2142's Titan mode, there were no such cutscenes and players had to find their own way aboard the enemy's Titan. And while I will love nothing more than that to be the case in Battlefront 2 as well, I'm only here talking realistically on what we could see, not exactly on what we want or may not see. We're all very much aware of the limitations in Battlefront 2. The game was coded and created in that specific way, so this mode is gonna have to work within those limitations. As unlike Battlefield 2142, Battlefront 2 is still missing things like multi-seat vehicles, and those which could be used in Titan mode are on rails like the LAT. Anyways, once aboard the capital ship, the mission would be to take out the ship's engines for the attacking team. Somewhat similar to the original Battlefront 2, where you would board the opponent's capital ship and make your way to its engines, plant your explosives and hope you meet as little resistance as possible. Now while this Titan mode sounds like a lot of fun, it's not exactly the basic Conquest mode we originally were hoping for. And to be honest, I don't think we'll be seeing that in Battlefront 2. At least not in online multiplayer. As if anyone still remembers, Dennis Brandval did promise offline players a large-scale mode as well. So if anything, seeing as it would be easier to code AI for a simple Conquest mode, it's possible that offline will get just that, while online will get the more elaborate Titan mode instead. And remember the command post concept art we talked about before? I think that may actually be work intended for the offline Conquest mode, rather than the online Titan mode. which should get something similar to missile silos, actually attacking and weakening the enemy's capital ship shields instead. As well, it should be pointed out that DICE actually call and refer the command posts for the new game mode as capture points rather than command posts, while Dennis is the only one to ever mention the word command posts, just like in the same way he's the only one to ever mention the offline large-scale mode. Which also leads me to believe that Dennis could be referring the command posts for offline, and then online we'll get something that more so fits the theme of Titan mode. But as of today, these are the facts that we know will feature in Battlefront 2's Titan mode. Capture points? Check. Capital ships being visible in the sky like Titans? Check. And going on board the capital ships to destroy them from the inside? Check once again. Of course, we're still missing the smaller details. Like what exactly will these command posts be to damage the capital ship shields? And if there will be a cheap cutscene only to get aboard the capital ship or not? Will there be a higher player count for Titan mode as well? Not to mention if DICE will even keep the name Titan mode or just give the mode an entirely new name. We should definitely be finding out the answers for that and more come February. There's also a chance we may get teased a little bit about the mode in January as well. But definitely DICE will reveal everything in February as that's when the mode does release. And then we'll just have to see if all the delays had been worth the long wait or not. But that'll do it for this Battlefront update. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please like it, share it, and subscribe to the channel to not only support it, but keep up with Star Wars news, gaming, and canon lore released every week. And consider following me on Twitter and Facebook to never miss out on the latest Star Wars related content. Thanks for watching and may the Force be with you.